Well, Naomi,
Thank you.
oops, hang on a second. I have to accept that. Um, Let me just turn this, sorry. Um, it is such a treat to see so many familiar faces, and it's just, I guess, probably a year and a half ago that I was able to be with you at your district conference at WINS conference, and at that time we had no idea what was on the horizon, but we certainly had an opportunity to get to know each other and to get to know each other really well. It feels very wonderful being able to sort of step into this space with all of you before the rest of the group comes on, and to know that you are all friends, dear friends. And we've met not only at your district conference, but many of us have connected in San Diego and Santa Barbara and all different places where we've been able to have a good time and share in good fellowship. Today, I guess for this 15 minutes, I really want to say thank you to all of you, and to understand and appreciate that when we were there and got to see your district in action, it was very enlightening, actually, quite candidly, because I had not seen a district function in the way that yours does ever before. And the level of what the assistant governors have to contribute, and not have to, that want to contribute in order to make your district flow, because you are on multiple islands. And I loved seeing the leadership development that happened for all of the assistant governors because of that, and the way that you as governors, both Win and Naomi and Sandy coming up, how you've, and all of the past governors on here, how you've had to really rely on your AGs, I think, in a way that is so much more profound than other districts around the world. And that's really based on geography. And so I think it's very unique, and it's a time, right now we're in a time where the way that you are able to practice Rotary probably mirrors what we're all going through. And you, I think, probably had a little bit of a heads up on this, because having to coordinate and communicate via these kinds of channels across different islands is probably something that is a little bit old school almost for you now, where the rest of the world is catching up on this exact kind of technology. And I don't know if it feels that much different to you, but one of the things I know that certainly has happened is that this has punctuated more profoundly than ever that we have a global passport as members of Rotary. And so it's not unusual or strange or different in any way, shape, or form to have someone join your meeting from some far-flung place in the world. It is not unusual for me to be sitting here in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, and to be talking to you guys in your beautiful state, which I wish which I was in, state and state of mind. But it's a joy. It's a joy to be able to be here. And so today, I don't want to get too formal. And I mean, I'd even love to be able to just chit chat a little bit more before we get into more of a formal presentation. And if there's anything that anybody wants to ask, before we get onto the call, I know we're going to do Q&A with the whole group, but I'd also love to just be able to talk a little bit with this group, because I know all of you. Linda, tell me how you're coping. How are things going on for you? You have to unmute though, hon.
Thank you. I'm not used to technology. Here, I've been a TV person all my life, but we didn't have all this in those days. We would go out with our own cameras and we do our own reporting. We wouldn't email it back or use a phone or whatever. Things have so changed. So I'm sitting back kind of wide-eyed and appreciate the opportunity to Zoom my meetings every Tuesday at the Rotary Club of Honolulu. And yet I miss the hugs. I miss the opportunity to share with my ohana, my family. And we can't lose that via tech. We've got to keep that love, and family feeling alive, and not just by a push of the button.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like I'm channeling my inner Linda, because I set this up so it looks like a bit of a news news studio
Yeah, looks good.
that I'm sitting in. And yeah, so every time I turn this on, I always kind of feel like I'm channeling you. So
You sweetie, thank you. I wish I could channel you every day. You are a wonderful inspiration. Couldn't think of a better person to take the helm uh, now or forever. You know, any day would have been perfect. Finally, you're there. And curious, one question. Have you thought of a theme?
So one of the things that they lay out basically days after being selected is the challenge for what is your theme. And it's one of the first things that you actually have to come up with. And I'll tell you, this is sort of maybe a little bit of a behind the scenes kind of thinking, but I'm not necessarily a fan of themes and
Yeah,
changing themes every year because
yeah, me too.
I think it confuses our external public. You know, who are we? You know, one year we're this, one year we're that. And anyway, there's enough change that I know is going to be involved in just being our first woman. And so there's only so many swords I'm going to fall on. So I have selected a theme, and it will be something that I unfortunately can't share with you for about another year. And
Does it have to do with tits in Rotary?
It does not.
Oh,
Um, but I hope it's something that when we get to share it just over a year from now at the International Assembly, I hope it's something. What I can tell you is that I wanted it to be inspirational, yes, but aspirational, and for us to have something to look forward to drive us to being progressive, to thinking. Thinking perhaps outside the box a little bit, and so it's something that hopefully is going to resonate in that kind of way. Let me jump
thank
over
you.
the screen here. Laura, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a while.
Ah,
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I realized after I'd signed on that I gave my webcam to one of my club members so she could sign on to the Zoom later. So I had to go find my laptop and sign on again. Anyway, our company has been open every day since day one. So we have
Wow.
managed to socialize nicely since then. But of course, the small business challenge, staying alive is every day a exciting thing. But we're doing great, and we're having so much fun in Rotary, and our foundation giving is doing well so far, knock wood. And we're
That's
hoping
awesome.
that we'll be able to finish up the year in great style. We're
Well,
having fun with Naomi, of course.
well, you know, it's interesting. I was in a conversation just recently with some of our staff in the foundation area, and we're looking at where we're trending right now, trying to figure out how COVID's actually affecting giving on a global basis, and we're actually tracking like if not right on track, even a bit in advance of it,
Yeah.
which is really amazing. I mean, and clearly that's because we know that we need to support the foundation to be able to support all the stuff that we're doing, like COVID right now. So many of the different grants that are going on. So good to see you,
Great. Good
Ron.
to
How
see
about
you
you?
too.
Let me say hello to you. How are you doing? How's your club going?
Morning, Jen. Doing well. And thanks for being with us this morning. Yeah, our
Yeah.
club is actually doing quite well. We've done, I think, better with our Zoom calls as far as attendance and engagement. We've been able to bring in probably three, four, five new and younger members who
Woo.
like the setup of meeting electronically, not having to set the time aside for attending a meeting because it's much more than an hour. And it gives them some flexibility. They can be with their family. And I think it's working out quite well. So we're very pleased with that.
Well, I'm glad to hear you share that, and I'm hearing that anecdotally, actually, the world over, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the whole group about where I hope this is going to take us in the future, and from what you've just said, it's a great testimonial for where I hope we're going to land in the years and weeks and months to come. So good to see you, Ron. Sandy, how's things with you? You're gearing up.
yeah.
It is very, very exciting. And plus I have all of these incredible role models, right? And mentors that I get to follow behind. So I'm really excited. As far as COVID, I have been trying to get my son home from Oregon for the last 6 months. So
Oh,
I'm just
wow.
keeping my fingers crossed because, you know, our travel guideline and restrictions keep changing and keep increasing. So that's my hope for within the next 3 days. I'm hoping to have my younger son home.
In time for the holidays, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that would be nice. But it's
that would
great
be
to
nice.
see. Oh, wait, and hold on. Lacey says hi.
Oh, look it. Oh,
She loved Jennifer and your husband. Yeah.
hello, baby. Oh, so good to see you, and good luck with everything in February with your training. The training leaders right now are working around the clock, making sure that it's going to be exciting and that the modules are all going to work just brilliantly. And so I know that there's tons of energy coming your way, and so I know it's going to be different than what you anticipated and what you signed up for in the beginning. But I know that there is an incredible effort to max it out to be, to be something that's highly effective. And so get excited because I think there's going to be some good juice coming your way.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, we're going to open the room in a few minutes, but for our emerging leaders in our Leadership Academy, do you have any advice for them? Some words of wisdom?
Well, I think that words of wisdom in 3 minutes or less. One of the things that, well, first and foremost, like I said in the very beginning, I want to thank you all. But words of wisdom, I think one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given by a past district governor, and it's one that not only applies to Rotary, but it applies to life as well. And I think that certainly right now, there's lots of anxiety level and different things like this that can get people maybe a little bit out of their comfort zone and maybe acting a little differently than normal. But the piece of advice I was given is to not water the weeds. And it's a piece of advice that I have taken with me every single day. And when you're dealing with clubs and when you're dealing with personalities, sometimes what can happen is that the person who barks the loudest is the one who you end up paying the most attention to. When really you want to nurture and nourish and water the other flowers who are looking to grow and to do good things. And so sometimes we have to maybe find ways to negate the negative. And right now is probably a time more than ever where I think that's a thought pattern for all of us to think about. And you can see it manifest itself in so many different ways. The people who email like crazy with because they've got something that they've got a burr in their claw, and they really just keep harping at you, and you spend 80% of your time trying to figure that out, when the 20% that they really should be the 20% and not the 80%. The other ones who really are looking forward to your inspiration, to the way that you're able to motivate them. That's where you need to place your energy. And so I think that if I could give you one piece of advice, it's the one piece that I know that sticks with me always. I'm not always successful at it. Sometimes you get dragged into the weeds a little bit, but I think the best thing you can do is to try and focus on the positive, stay in that space, and find ways to neutralize the others. But I guess the last piece of advice I'll give you is that you have an incredible team, and I know how much you're able to rely on each other. And so even in the midst of all of this craziness that we're going through, thank you for understanding that and for making sure that you have each other's backs, that you're supporting each other, and maybe more than anything, take an extra opportunity to maybe lift up the phone and call one or two people a week, just to, in your circle here, your leadership team, just to make sure everybody's feeling good, feeling connected, and, has a little bit of extra encouragement, because I think we all could use that from time to time. We all are existing in our own bubbles in many ways. And so the way that you're able to support each other now is profound. So keep on doing what you're doing.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to let the floodgates open, right, Benson? We're gonna let everybody
Yep.
in.
Yep, I got them coming right now. Here we go. So we'll just take a break for a couple of minutes till we get everybody that's out there in here. But we've got almost 50 people on the call right now.
Wow.
Yeah, almost 50.
I notice the meeting is being recorded. Will the recording be placed in the place that we have access to if I want to show it to my club?
Yes.
Yes.
Naomi?
Good.
Hi, Naomi.
Hey, Charlene from Arizona.
Yes, hello.
Aloha.
Aloha. Hey, hi, Linda.
Aloha.
Your hair is long.
I know. Look what I'm using to drink.
Oh, I love it. I use one every morning.
And every time I look at you, I still remember being a teenage boy watching you on the newscast.
She has always been so pretty.
Mahalo plenty. Oh, thank you.
Hello, Amos.
Hi, John.
Okay, why don't we get started? So we're going to be muting everyone when Jennifer's speaking, but if you can put her on the speaker view, then you can see her on your full screen. But I'd like to do an introduction now of Jennifer. So Jennifer Jones is a member of the Rotary Club of Windsor, Roseland in Ontario, Canada. She is a Rotary Foundation trustee, 2019 to 23rd.
Join the meeting.
She is and she was the Rotary International Vice President 2016 and 17. She has many honors and recognitions, including the Rotary Service Above Self Award, the Citation for Meritorious Service, the YMCA Peace Medallion, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, and the Wayne State University's Peacemaker of the Year Award, a first for a Canadian. And she has another first, and that's being the first woman to be named as president of Rotary International. So Jennifer is the founder and president of Media Street Productions, a 25-year-old award-winning media company in Ontario. And she works alongside political figures, celebrity, global leaders. She uses her voice to raise awareness and raise hundreds of millions of dollars to eradicate disease, support peace, provide clean water and sanitation in developing areas in the world. And her skill as an expert storyteller inspires hope and promise, motivates people to take action. Jennifer's married to Rotarian Nick, a local physician. They love many things, including travel, cycling, golf, relaxing at their family cottage. They share a thirst for adventure, which has included cresting the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. So now I have the honor to present our Rotary International President 2022 to 23, Jennifer Jones.
Aloha, District 5000, and thank you, Governor Naomi. I'm very excited to be able to join all of you this morning and to be able to share some time, some thoughts, some reflections, and then I know we have some time set aside to be able to go into questions and answers, and I'm very eager to be able to get to that point so that we can have a little bit more of an interactive dialogue with each other, and I can hear some of the things that you would like to know about. Naomi has asked me to focus on a couple of things this morning. Our new diversity, equity, and inclusion statement is one of them, and I'll be speaking about that. And also growing Rotary, where we're going in terms of growth within our own organization. But I want to start this morning with a very short story, and it's one that sort of lays the groundwork for what I'd like to talk with you about today. And this goes back a couple of years ago. My younger brother, David, he and I were sitting and we were having a chit chat, and I was preparing for a media interview that I was going to be doing. And in this media interview, it was about the role of service in civil society. and it was a university publication. And so I was doing what every good person does before they do an interview, as Linda well knows. You start to imagine what are the questions that they're going to ask, and then you think about the ways that you would answer those questions, coming up with your key messages, things that you want to make sure that
Join the meeting.
cover when you're asked certain things. And so as we were sort of talking about service and the role of service in civil society, out of my brother's mouth came this quote. He said, "In order to live in the kind of society you want, you have to help build it." And I said, "Who said that?" And he said, "I said that." And I said, "No, I know, but who said that?" And he said, "I said that." And I said, "Okay, we're a bad Abbott and Costello routine. Really, who said it?" And he said, "I did." And, we came to this point of realization that this was something that he actually had come up with himself. In order to live in the kind of society you want, you have to help build it. And I think that fundamentally goes to the core of who we are as Rotarians. And quite honestly, it ties hand in glove into our new vision statement for our organization that says, "Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our own communities, and in ourselves." And I think that perhaps for me, those last couple of words are the most important. In ourselves, the lasting change within ourselves. Who here isn't different, isn't made better because of your affiliation, association, your membership in Rotary? We bring leaders in and we make better leaders. And so if you think of your own personal journey, think of how you have changed because of the opportunities you've been afforded through Rotary. I can tell you right now that I know I am a better public speaker, I am a better event manager, I am a better party planner, I am better at board governance, all because of my membership in Rotary. And all of that then transfers over into, your vocational life as well, which is really the gift, the real gift. It also transfers, I think, very much into our personal lives and how we interact and associate with others. I don't know about you, but as I think about who is the closest in my circle to me, it's pretty much all Rotarians. My family, my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister-in-law, my husband, we've all been members of Rotary now for quite some time. And so it's something that I know for all of us, especially for those of you choosing to be on a Saturday morning on a call to talk and to connect, you understand that this is part of your DNA. And that's, I think, a fundamental important step. Now, I want to reflect a little bit upon where we're at right now in our Rotary world and take us back 8, months or so to March, when we all went collectively into lockdown together. And every man, woman, and child on this planet, we all went through the exact same thing. And having to isolate, having to distance ourselves from each other, having to continue to do that even to this day. And yet, at the same time, one of the things that we saw happen most quickly and in such an incredible way is how Rotarians, how each of us were able to, even in the confines of our own homes, being isolated, to still take action. We didn't have to tell Rotarians to be people of action. You showed us that you already were by thinking of ways to acquire PPE, to raise money for ventilators, to look at food scarcity issues in our own community. And when we think about food scarcity issues, a lot of times historically we would jump to thinking of developing parts of our world. But in our own backyard right now, this is something of great concern everywhere. I know I mentioned my brother and sister-in-law both being in a Rotary Club. They take care of the local food bank in their small community, and the need has never been greater. And I think that if you were to drive through that area, you would think it was somewhat affluent, particularly by world standards, and yet understanding that these are things that we need to be very mindful of. And, I think one of the things that right now we do better than probably anybody is making sure that we're not leaving folks behind, that we're doing scans of our clubs to make sure that, folks aren't isolated and that we are making sure that we're pulling them in and making sure that nobody is left behind. It's an important time for us as Rotarians to be able to reflect on how we take care of each other and how we take care of our communities, of course, in our world, but then back to that vision statement, that lasting change also within ourselves. We know that we acted quickly, and in those early weeks, we galvanized behind the Rotary Foundation in very profound ways. We were able to put grants into the hands of districts within days. This is something that our foundation has never worked this quickly on before, and we were able to get grants into districts' hands so that we could help fund all of these important needs for particularly people on the front lines. And we were able to move in the course of just a couple of months more than $30 million in global grants and disaster response grants right to the front line. And this was critically important, and it remains important. And we have global grants at levels that we've never seen before, particularly related to COVID recovery. But you know what? One of the great things right now is that we see some hope. We see hope on the horizon, and that is something that I know hopefully is giving each and every one of you a little chance to take a deep breath and realize that sometime within the next probably 6 months, we're going to see vaccines being widely disseminated and distributed. And there will be, I believe, a role for Rotarians in that, particularly with advocacy for vaccines. Vaccines is something we do, and I'll talk about polio in just a minute, but that's something for more than 35 plus years we have been on the front lines advocating for because we know that they work. And we know that there are going to be folks in our community who might be reticent. And so advocacy and communication is going to be important. And I think also because we are leaders in our community, talking with our municipal, regional, national leaders right now to say, hey, where do you need help? Where can our army of people, how can we be of benefit right now? And having those conversations right now, I think is very meaningful. You know, one of the stories that I think we should be shouting from the rafters, if you will, is our polio eradication success story. And in particular, the polio infrastructure that we started with our partners more than 30 plus years ago that remains in more than 70 countries around the world with thousands and thousands of polio frontline workers. And in the very beginning, those workers, they were able to pivot. Isn't that a 2020 word? They were able to pivot on a dime and move from being frontline polio workers into being frontline COVID workers. And they didn't abandon what they were doing with polio. We had to take a pause on immunizations, but they were able to continue doing critical surveillance and contact tracing, not only for polio, but for COVID as well. And if you think back about 5 or 6 years when we had the Ebola outbreak in Africa, this same public health infrastructure was able to put a lid on it. And likewise, in many areas of our world, because of this infrastructure, we have been able to shut down COVID in many ways, large and small. And I know as we move forward, that infrastructure will be something that we're going to rely on as vaccines do get out into the field. And particularly because they're going to require medical professionals. There'll be injections. Unlike, as we know, with our polio immunizations, many of us, been able to go out into the field to provide those two drops of vaccine. But with COVID, it's clearly going to be different. And using the cold chain system that we have been able to pioneer and put into place over decades is certainly something that is going to be of benefit. And, you know, even in the midst of all of this craziness, there is still an opportunity for us to have good news. And many of you will remember in August that we were able to certify the entire African continent as wild polio virus free. What an incredible celebration and what a milestone to be able to take Nigeria off of the endemic list, leaving only Afghanistan and Pakistan as our 2 remaining endemic countries. And we're making great strides even there now that we've been able to reassume doing our vaccines and making plans, working with governments there to make sure that we're getting in there and identifying those last children that we need to identify to get across the threshold. So one of the things that happened, again, a good news story, and I want to share this with you because I think we need to hear these things, is that when we were celebrating in August, Nigeria being named wild polio virus free, At the same time, something really cool happened. One of our Rotarian friends there, Dr. Tunji Funsho, was recognized as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. Tunji, as he's known to all of his friends, is the head of the Polio Plus Committee in Africa, a Rotarian and a doctor there, a wonderful man. And so this is a very cool little story. About 5 or 6 years ago, we as Rotary, our communications staff, approached Jeffrey Kluger, the editor-at-large at Time magazine, to ask if they would do a story about Rotary and polio and public health. And he came back to us with, why on earth would I do a story like that? And so we had to educate him. We had to share with him why this was a story worth telling. And he has become one of our most fierce advocates, speaking at our international convention as part of our World Polio Day live stream, and then nominating our good friend Tunji to be one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people. Now, if you ask Tunji what he thinks about that, he's obviously clearly honored, but one of the things that he'll tell you is that his face is the face of 1.2 million of you and I around the world who have all put energy into making sure that we are working collaboratively and collectively to kicking this disease off the face of the planet. The second disease in modern history, in the history of the world, to be eradicated. And as Rotarians, we have said this many times, we have made a promise and we keep our promises. And I know, in fact, that that's what we're going to do. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit to talk with you about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is a platform, a statement that we're hearing widely talked about in circles everywhere, from government to educational institutions to corporations and Rotary. And this is something that I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time talking about in the years to come. In particular, as I look at and voice and answer the question that I'm most frequently asked about, what is it like to be our organization's, being selected our organization's first female president. And one of the things that I can tell you is that I am incredibly honored, and it is something that I don't take lightly, and I know it's a great honor and a great privilege. And I will use my voice to talk about diversity. And one of the ways that I think that this is most important is that when I talk about being selected, one of the things I think that's really important for people to understand, and I was told this by the nominating committee, I was not selected because of my gender. I was selected because of my qualifications. And I think that that's an important distinction as we talk about diversity. Now, diversity in our organization is not something new. We've spent the past 5 or 6 years with each of our individual international presidents making diversity a priority, in particular, bringing in more women and bringing in members under the age of 40. And if we look at what cumulatively has happened over that 5 or 6 year window of time, the needle has moved in a very negligible way. So how do we do something different? Well, I think one of the things is that in order to attract those demographics, they actually need to see themselves authentically reflected in leadership. And so I'm hoping that by example, this is something that is going to help move the needle in some kind of way. But I like to think of it from this perspective. We're business people, every one of us. If you were in your own business and you had an underrepresented market share and you thought to yourself, well, I'm just gonna leave it alone, I'm not gonna grow it, it wouldn't be what you would do. As business people, I think we need to look at it through this lens and say that we have underrepresented demographics in our organization. And as part of a good business plan, we need to look at how to attract those people. And if you look at the global population, 50% are male, 50% are female, or it skews a percentage point either way given where we're at in a period of time. But that shows us that we have an actual business case to be able to make an increase and to attract people into our organization. And at the crux of it all, it really comes down to, in my mind, having a conversation about diverse perspective. And so I don't intend to be the flag bearer for a gender. I intend to have conversation about diverse perspective. If we had clubs that were all doctors or all lawyers or all bakers, we would only look at things through one lens. But because we all have something unique that we can bring to the conversation, because of that, we are able to solve the world's most pressing challenges. We bring diversity of thought from all of our different age, culture, sexual orientation, gender, all of that. It allows us to see things the way that others necessarily can't see. It allows us to work in ways that even our own government can't do to solve some of these problems. And because we're a non-political, non-religious organization, we have the ability to transcend borders and boundaries and to look at problems in a very, very unique way. And so from a diverse perspective platform, I think the challenge is to all of us to do a scan of our communities, to do a scan of our clubs, and say, where are the gaps? Who's missing? Who's not part of the conversation to help us solve the problems we want to tackle? And then go after that. But then the most important thing we can do in terms of growing Rotary, the main focus we have as a priority for membership right now, is to look at the members that we're wanting to bring in. And I feel very strongly that one of the things that we need to do is identify the growth and the leadership opportunities for our members. And so one of the things that we've talked about for ages is when someone leaves one of our Rotary clubs, that we do an exit interview. And you know, somebody said this in a meeting the other day, and it was such an aha moment for me. Why are we doing exit interviews? Why are we spending our time on that back end when really what we should be doing is an entrance interview and asking people, what do you want out of this experience? And then delivering on it. When we talk about the revolving door in our organization, we have brought more people into Rotary, more than 1.3 million members in the past 10 years. You know what that means? We've also lost more than that same amount. So we've got clearly no issue attracting them. We have an attractive product, but keeping them meaningfully engaged is one of our struggles. And so it comes down, I think, to first and foremost, like I said, asking people, what do you want out of this experience? Helping to deliver on that and understanding that's the personal growth journey that goes back to that vision statement that I said in the very beginning, the opportunity for lasting change within ourselves, that we become better people, that we become global ambassadors of an organization where anything is possible. And for each and every one of you who is joined together on this call today, I hope you understand that we each individually have the opportunity to raise an idea and to do something that can profoundly change our world, not just our community, but our world too, because we're part of something that is bigger than ourselves. Who would have ever thought, if we had gone to Rotarians, as one of my colleagues once said, and told them and asked all of us, we need you to raise $2.5 billion. We need you to immunize 2.1 billion children. And we need you to do it it's going to take you more than 30 years to do. Would we have done it? No, of course not. But we have. We have. And we're capable of so much more. The last thought that I'll leave you with is where potentially we can go in the future. We know that we have just added on to our areas of focus a seventh, the environment. And this is something that will launch officially on July 1 of this year, where we'll be able to start to access global grants for environmental projects. And one of the interesting things about this, and I think it's important information for you to understand and know, as we were grappling and trying to understand whether we wanted as trustees to put the environment as an add-on to our current 6 areas of focus or make it a standalone, we did abundant amounts of research, and we talked with Rotarians and thought leaders and researchers, did tons of focus groups trying to figure out what was going on. But one of the things that happened is that we also did research into where Rotarians were putting their dollars in terms of global grants. And if we looked at the year prior of all of the millions of dollars that we had spent in global grants, putting it out into the field, more than $18 million had an environmental impact. And so Rotarians told us this was important and that it needed to be a standalone area of focus. So I hope you're as excited as I am that that's something that we're going to launch to great fanfare at the beginning of the new Rotary year. And I think that as we start to think about what that means, it can mean a whole different, I mean, there's so many different ways to be able to tackle this. And it can be as simple as trying to remove plastics from our water. It can be as simple as river cleanups, uh, a club cleanup on a stretch of highway or in a community or in a neighborhood or a beach. There's all different ways that we can tackle this, but we can be more intentional about what we want the outcomes to be. So let me leave that is maybe the last thought. And I know that we're just coming up on a half an hour together, and we have more time now to be able to chit chat. And I'd love to be able to hear your questions, be able to answer them, hopefully give you some additional insight and learn a little bit from all of you, because this is my chance to be able now to hear some of the things that you think are important. So Governor Naomi, why don't I turn it back over to you, and you can let me know how you want to go through handling questions.
Okay. We do have a question in the chat, but before we get into that, Jennifer, I'd like to let you know that we are planting 10,000 trees this
Woo!
year for the environment. So
Yay! Good on
yeah,
you. That's awesome.
yeah, and maybe Mariko can let you know in a little bit about what they're doing on Maui. But the question in the chat is the Taliban still interfering and lying to people in Afghanistan about the delivery of the polio vaccine to children? And are the vaccine deliverers under threat?
So that's a big question, and I have some information, probably not the entire answer, but I'll tell you what I do know. And that is that last January, before we had all of the craziness of 2020 happen, then President-elect Holger, along with then Trustee Chair-elect Ravi Ravindran and Mike McGovern, the head of our International Polio Plus Committee, made a trip to Pakistan to meet with President Imran Khan in that country. And it was a highly successful meeting where their defense minister was also in attendance, and they put their full weight of their government and their defense department behind saying, we need to get this done. We will work with you tirelessly to make sure that we get it done. Now, around that same time, there was also information. The Taliban had put a ban on the door-to-door immunizations that were taking place in their country. And it's one of the ways that we have been most successful in those two countries in the world, the mum-to-mum kind of building of trust and immunization workers being able to go door to door. And yes, still under some threat at some time, but a lot of very dedicated people carrying out this very important work. Around that same time, they lifted the door-to-door ban. It was still door-to-door, the ban was still door-to-door, but what they lifted was that they would permit immunizations to take place in health clinics. And so the challenge was then identifying, okay, how do you get all of these kids to the clinics? That's hard too, because one of the things, as crazy as I know this sounds, but the Taliban don't want their children to contract polio either. And so, getting the children immunized has been an important part. That is about what I can tell you to date right now. I don't have any intel on exactly what is happening with the immunizations at this very moment, except to say that they have resumed. And so I'm not sure exactly what the status is on whether door-to-door has been able to resume yet at this point. But the immunizations have resumed, and I know that we're continuing conversations, and that is something that is ongoing right now and ramping back up again even more in the past couple of weeks. Certainly as the conversation with our partners, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the WHO, UNICEF, the CDC, on also how COVID and polio are related to each other. And that's going to be something that will be definitely talking a lot about in the next couple of months. You're going to hear some messaging coming out of Rotary, I would guess, by the new year, in terms of how we're going to move forward collectively with our partners in eradicating polio, but also how we're going to utilize our our infrastructure to tackle COVID as well. And so I apologize, I don't have a little bit more information on the Taliban aspect of that, but that's where we stand right now.
Gotta unmute, Naomi.
Sorry,
Yeah.
trying to get there. Okay, thank you very much. And Mariko, do you want to share what you're doing on Maui for the tree planting? You have a really unique way that you're doing that project.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So on Maui, we are planting fruit trees. The target is 500, but it could actually go up to 1,000. We just started it last weekend, and it will run to the end of January 2021. And the partner that we have, one of the partner is Uncle George Kafumaku Jr., who is the farmer, musician of the Grammy Awards and Renaissance man of in Maui. And so the fruit tree concept came from him, from Uncle George. And so we thought it was great because this is great for the climate change mitigation, as well as to feed the families in need or the share of the fruits from the trees. And it's a great project for the next generations, not just us, but for the next generation. So two themes, climate change and Hawaii imports 85 to 90% of the food, which is ridiculous. So at least we contribute to feeding the fruits to each other. So then we are going to plant in households, community spaces such as churches, homeless shelters, and so on and so on. So last Saturday, we had the launch event at the homeless shelter in Kahului with Uncle George's pule, the prayer to start the event, and his mele and his songs. And then we planted about 20 fruit trees, including mangoes, papayas, and avocado, and so on. And next weekend, not today, next Saturday, we will be giving away 300 fruit trees at 3 different locations on Maui. And so all these events, including in media, really helps Rotary's name to be upfront to the public. And we'll be collecting, we do know who have received these trees, so we can reach out to see how the trees are doing, and also they could be potential Rotary members. So what we noticed, and also many people actually donate the saplings. Many people do have papaya trees and banana tree saplings, so they also donate the plants. And they volunteer the time to plant them together. And also we are getting a lot of funding from friends, not just on Maui, but friends on mainland and of the members, the friends of the members. What we noticed is that I think some stock market capital gain, some people got a good capital gains. So they are donating good amount of money for this project. So we are very, very happy about that. And maybe we are thinking we can make this as an annual event for Rotary on Maui, but that's still after we finish this event, how we feel about this. Thank you, John.
Mariko, that is wonderful, and I love how multifaceted it is. I mean, the ecological impact, the benefit of the fruit, and that's absolutely, and the public relations value of that is immeasurable. Is there any cap on how many trees you could do? I mean, literally.
Well, we started modestly, with 500, and we have 10 clubs on Maui. And so it's a island-wide, but there are so many demands, and then many people are donating the saplings. So the limit, the sky is the limit, but we are just keeping it until the end of January. We can't really just focus on this forever. So we'll probably go up to 1,000 trees, and by the end of January, that's our hope.
Well, congratulations. That's brilliant. Thank you for telling me about that. I love it.
Thank you.
And the trees will survive because they've all been blessed. but it's like Sermon on the Mount that this is growing so much with so much partnership and community involvement with this project. But with environment, Jennifer, what are some of the other projects that people are doing around the world for environment?
Well, I mean, it's a whole myriad of things depending on where you are. I certainly, when Ian Risley was our president just a couple of years ago, and he challenged us to plant trees, that was something that resonated profoundly. He wanted one tree for every member, which would have obviously been 1.2 million trees. And I don't even know that there is any legitimate way to count how many trees have been planted. There's just thousands and thousands and millions of trees that have been planted. That's one thing. Certainly, it resonates in different areas for different reasons. You've outlined some of the reasons why that's important on Maui and perhaps in other parts of the state. But here in my own community, we've been planting a whole area in a wetland area because we're trying to preserve different wetlands and the necessity for protecting the ecosystem of the Great Lakes where I live. And so that's something that is a formidable thrust. I can give you just a very personal and a very sweet example is that my 9-year-old niece is absolutely passionate right now about making sure that plastic water bottles are removed and is collecting them from her classmates. And she's identified a guy who she collects them for. He's able to reduce them and repurpose them into other kinds of, for other uses. And so, I love that this, little 9-year-old dynamo is finding her passion and her voice through something that she knows is making the world a better place. I know that when we were, and this is another personal example, I know Nick and we were in Mexico a couple of years ago, and we were there. His club does a lot of water projects, and so certainly there's a tie-in to different things to do with water. But on the day that we were at this school, and this was a little school where maybe there might have been 20 kids that were attending it, but it was outdoors, and it had walls that basically you could see through. It was very rudimentary, and it had a tin roof. And so every time the rain came down, they could barely hear anything. They couldn't learn properly. And so this was a sort of a recon mission to figure out how to help rebuild this little one-room schoolhouse and also their water supply. They had a well there that was in grave need of repair. And so we were talking with the teachers and some of the local community members, and this was Playa del Carmen, which is an area of Mexico where there's a lot of very high-end resorts and everything, but literally 1 mile off of the strip where billions of dollars have been invested, literally 1 mile off into some of the beach areas, you can find absolute abject poverty. And so this is the kind of area that we were in. And so as we're having these conversations, the little kids are listening. And the one came up and he wanted to say something. And he said, we understand that you're here to help rebuild our school, and we want to do something to say thank you. And all of us kids, we're going to clean up the beach in this area every day to make sure that it's more attractive, for people in the areas surrounding them. And so, you think about what some of these things mean to little kids. They didn't even need to be taught about that kind of a lesson. They automatically were drawn to doing something that they knew would make the environment better. And so there's all kinds of different projects. I know in some parts of Central America, one of the highest rates of cancers and disease is because they have these cook ovens inside of their homes. And so replacing them and changing out these cook ovens is something that's very important for health, but for the environment as well. There's different things like that. I'm trying to think, the world's our oyster. We can literally think of, or the sky's the limit, I guess I should say, on the number of different things that we can do and that we can tackle. So there's maybe just a couple of them.
Thank you. Other questions?
I think Wynn has a question.
Okay, Wynn.
Hey, Jen. So our world seems to be politically very split. And when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think it goes beyond the typical race and the things that we think about. How do we increase our tolerance of different ideas and different ways of looking at the world within Rotary?
Yeah, it's a big question. And I think the beginning, and first and foremost, I love seeing you. Mwah. Um, one of the ways, I guess, probably that I can sort of maybe bring it down to a level where we can all kind of get our head around it a little bit, because, you know, that's such a big question, and it's such a big thought. So this past week, I had a call from, I was on a call with a district in the Middle East, and the call was originated out of Bahrain, but that district also includes Lebanon and Cyprus and Armenia, Georgia, Jordan. That's all in one district. And so we were on this call, and one of the things that came up is a crisis that's happening in Armenia right now. And one of the members from that district spoke up right away and said, you know, there's 75,000 families here who have been displaced, and winter is coming, and we're trying to figure out what to do. We only have 6 clubs, and blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, the question was, what can we do? And so through the dialogue that we were having, we were able to identify that perhaps this is an area where maybe Shelterbox, one of our partners, Shelterbox, the organization, if you are not familiar with it, provides, it's for $1,000. These are tents, like crates that come with a tent that can sleep up to 10, cooking utensils, pots and pans, blankets, some bedding, and basic necessities for families. And depending on the climate that they're in, they can be for winter purpose or for tropical purpose as well. And so wherever we seem to have different disasters that are happening in our world, Rotarians oftentimes engage with Shelterbox to try and get these into this area. So through the course of conversation, there's a number of different political edges to what's going on as well. And you can take that example that I'm giving you right now, and you can repurpose it into other parts of the world. But it comes back to what I said at the very beginning about how because we are non-political and non-religious, we are able to open doors and do things that many governments can't do. And so helping to bridge that gap is incredible. And hearing the kinds of ways in that district alone that they support each other, the way that with the massive blast that happened in Lebanon just about 2 months ago, I guess in August, the major explosion that they had there. Well, they were telling me all the stories of each of their different countries and how they responded right away. And even though sometimes these are countries that might have some differing views in terms of their own governments, whether there's successful relationships or not, with the Rotarians, all the relationships are successful. And maybe I shouldn't say all, there's probably instances where it's not, but the majority of those relationships are successful, and they're able to identify the needs from peer to peer and make those things happen, whether it's with the aid of the Rotary Foundation or whether it's with the aid of opening appropriate doors, because as leaders, we have contacts. We have the ability to talk to people of rank in our own country, regardless of whether it's government, but whether it's corporations and different other organizations perhaps that we can partner with. And so you're right, when that diversity, equity, and inclusion is so much more than you can't paint this with one brush. But I think that as Rotarians, as Rotary as an entity, we are so uniquely poised to be able to have sometimes the more challenging conversations, to be the honest broker, as we've often been referred to in the polio journey, that we're the steward of great funds, and that we're able to be relied on by others, by government and other organizations as well. And so I think we need to take our role in all of this incredibly seriously. And how can we be the purveyors of good in our world? Because that's at the end of the day what we all do. We want to build world peace through understanding. And that is the hallmark of who we are. And the foundation allows us to do good in the world. And so I think that for me, the challenging part of DEI really does come down to sometimes being able to have challenging conversations. And sometimes, that's really difficult to do. But I think if we can do it through the lens of the way that through our ethical lens of, understanding that our core values are objects of Rotary, the four-way test. The four-way test could never be more relevant probably than it is right now. And when we look at those tools and we live them, we internalize them, that we make them part of who we are, then, I think that internal compass serves us well and it takes us in the right direction. For some that may seem or sound schmaltzy, but I think that it really is fundamentally what makes our organization different than any other.
Respect would seem to be key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hope that answers what you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Benson, you have a question?
I'm going to pass on to Carly, because Carly put a question in the chat about Rotary's greatest challenge. So Carly, you want to ask your question?
Hi.
I know Carly's got the baby now, so.
Hey, look at that.
So, Jennifer, hi.
How are you?
I remember bringing you guys Komodo's donuts. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. My question was just kind of what the focus should be on Rotary clubs right now. There's so many challenges facing the world. Is it focusing on our current members and making sure they're okay right now, or trying to recruit new people with, all these incredible challenges we have? Or is it, COVID or the community and making sure people have enough to eat? Like, there's just so many things. It's hard to focus. And
It is. And thank you, Carly. Your baby's name?
Alana.
Oh, she's
almost 10 months now.
She's beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, hi, Lana. You're right. And it is, it is hard sometimes, for all of us to even figure out how to put one foot in front of the other. But I do think that your question is incredibly powerful and incredibly important. And I think all of the things that you said are part of the answer. I think it is really important right now for us to scan our clubs and make sure that we're taking care of each other. And, that the family of Rotary has never been probably more important. And, one of the things that obviously we see is a high amount of anxiety and stress and depression that people are dealing with. Obviously from, just the unknown and different things like that. But then there's the economic realities and the economic crisis that we probably have not fully actualized yet of what we're going through, and making sure that people, again, don't get left behind and that we're looking after each other. And I think the byproduct of that, when we're genuinely, authentically taking care of each other, is that we understand the value of what our membership is, and that we are part of something that's bigger than us. And if we can be in a collective together and feel that we're supporting each other and that we're getting through, that we're making sure that everyone is taken care of, I think then it gives us the platform to say, okay, what next? How can we make sure that the broader area around us is taken care of? And, to do that scan of our communities. But I think also that it's also a time right now where that opportunity as a collective, as a club, to make sure all those things I just talked about are in place, taking care of each other, creating stability for each other, very fundamentally important. This is kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs almost in some ways. And so if you get to that step, then maybe one of the next things to do is to say, what can we do? And give yourselves the opportunity to collectively think of, whether it's, like Mariko just told us about the planting the trees, having purpose is something that is really important. Having something to look forward to is really important. And we've gone through so many months of not necessarily having things to look forward to, just trying to survive. And right now, as we know that there is hope on the horizon, I think it's a time for us to maybe, open up the blinders a little bit, let a little bit more light in and say, okay, what can we do? And maybe right now it isn't the biggest things. Maybe it is smaller things with great impact. But I think that opportunity to challenge ourselves to say, you know, what can we do, is again, it psychologically, I think, helps to make us all just make it easier to put that one foot in front of the other. And so I think all of the things that you just said are exactly the kind of things for us to be focusing on. And at the end of the day, we're a people business, and we need to make sure that our people are good. And so make sure that you're looking out for each other, and make sure that if there's somebody you haven't heard from in a little while that might be reticent to be on a platform like this, to reach out and go do something. You know, today, my Nick and I, we went, the pastor of our church, she's an incredible friend, and she's going through lung cancer right now. And so we ordered up a Christmas wreath from one of our local Rotary clubs, and we went for a drive and picked it up. And we ordered an extra one for her and stopped by her house and, you know, just put it there on the doorstep. And she actually caught us and came to the door, and we were able to say hello. She's, I know, feeling incredible fear right now on so many different levels. COVID aside, just the fear of trying to battle through a devastating illness. And so, I don't know, that did my heart a lot of good today. And so think of things like that.
Thank you so much.
Ted has a question. Ted?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hey,
So my question was, we talk about diversity, and we talk about trying to attract younger members in particular into Rotary. And as business people, we know about targeting market segments, and we go out and research what are their needs and their desires. And then we plan our product and service, our marketing, and our customer experience around that. But as I look at our big picture of Rotary, many of our clubs are delivering what we did 20 years ago. So what do you see that we need to be doing differently in Rotary to attract and retain those younger members?
Well, Ted, I think we need you to talk about what you just talked about, because that is that is the key to understanding some of this change. And it's not even necessarily change that, regardless of age, there's one thing that I'd like to sort of frame membership from when we talk about the age conversation, is that what I believe we need to do is we need to attract young thinkers into our organization. And so I frame it this way often, that have you met a 25-year-old who's old? Have you met an 86-year-old who's young? So it's looking for people who are progressive in their thinking, forward thinking, and not trapped in the way that we've all heard before. Well, that's not the way we do it. And as soon as you hear those words, it's like you just slammed on the brakes to somebody and said, whoa, your creative, maybe outside of the box thinking is not part of the direction we're going to go. And let me tell you this, if you have a club that's functioning that way and is not going to change, the only way that we're going to improve that is to start a new club. Because there's some people who were just never going to move their cheese. It's just not part of what they do. And so looking for creative ways to start a new club, I think that that's a valuable step. Or for an individual who might not fit into a club, looking around a little bit to another club to see if there's a better fit. But regardless of age, what we need to make sure, I believe, is that we provide for meaningful service opportunity. And so whether you're 25, 35, 45, or 55, if what you're doing means something to you, that it's important, then you will put your time, you will place your time in what you see as important. And so, you know, you talk about a young family. I mean, look at Carly right there with her baby. I mean, she's got a whole plate full. But if we believe it's important, we make time for it, regardless of what our age is. But we do need to make sure that we give people a meaningful experience. It comes back to what I said earlier, asking people, what do you want out of your experience in Rotary? And then delivering on it. And that might be a great exercise for clubs right now that have been in existence for a while. And, you know, right now when we, you know, I mean, you might be able to do some hybrid meetings where you are because your COVID rates are low. I haven't been, my own club hasn't met since last March. No, none of them in our city and our community have been able to meet since then. And, you know, we're obviously getting a lot better at virtual platforms and many of the clubs. But that notion of meaningful service, of something that you can get your hands into, that applies to every single one of us. And if, like I said, I'm repeating myself now, but if we believe it's of value, then we will spend the time and we will spend the money. When we think about, you know, younger people coming in and having obstacles of, you know, a young family, just starting a job, you know, blah, blah, blah. If it's important, we'll make the time.
Thank
And
you.
Ted, I think you should whip that into a talk that you could do.
Maybe I'll collaborate with you on that.
I think that's
Thank
a good idea. David, I see your hand up.
Yeah, and thank you, Jennifer, for that comment about the young and the old. I must be one of those old guys that's young because my wife keeps telling me to grow up. What I'd like to do is have everybody who has assisted in any way with the Waikiki Centennial Park, just wave your hand. All right, we got a whole bunch of them. And yesterday at a meeting, they tasked me with making sure that I could get pictures of the park in the Rotary magazine with the story, because it's really a heck of a story. And one of the guys that started it all is sitting right here with us right now, Dave Benson. And Bub took that on when he was president of the Honolulu Club. And there's been so many people that have been instrumental in making this park happen. And it really is a wonderful story. And it will be done in time for the Rotary International Convention. Not this last one, unfortunately, but the next one. And that was kind of our joke last night, that we'll be ready to go. But if you could point me in the right direction through chat, who to contact to make sure that these pictures and this story get in the Rotary magazine, because we've got over $5 million in local money tied up in this project. And it really is beautiful, thanks to all those folks who raised their hand.
Dave, I'm pretty sure you have my email address, right?
I do not.
Okay, so yes, I will. You know what, Naomi, you have my email. Can you give that to David?
Yeah, thank you,
Sure.
Naomi. And I promise I won't share with anyone more than my
No, it's not.
22,000 things we're saving participants. Don't worry, and they'll all call you too personally.
Yeah, it's not a secret, but if you can reach out to me via email, what I'll do is take what I need from you is the hook. What's the story? Give it to me in a paragraph, and then that way, what I'll do is take it and approach the editor of the Rotarian and see if he can align you with someone that you can have a conversation with.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And quite honestly, part of that hook is we might not have it, that we'll have it done for the next convention. I think that there's an opportunity to throw you guys some love right now, because you worked so hard on getting ready for the convention last year, and just showing the way that you're taking such an optimistic approach to when it comes back. That's a story unto itself.
Thank you. We have one more question from Kelly McCallings. Kelly?
Thank you, Naomi. So one question for you, Jennifer. You had mentioned earlier that there's a new diversity statement coming out.
Yes.
My question is, as far as actions to back up that statement, are there any actions at RI that are either in progress or forthcoming to support the new diversity statement?
Sure, great question, and thanks for asking that, Kelly. If you actually Google or go on to Rotary.org and look up our Rotary Diversity, DEI, or Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Statement, we actually approved it a better part of a year and a half ago, and so you'll find it there in its written form. And most recently at the July board meeting of the RI board, a task force was struck in order to put now practical application to this statement. It can't just be words. We actually need to do something with it. And so Valerie Wafer, who is a director from Canada on the RI board, is chairing that task force. It has been over the past couple of months, we went out to with an invitation to Rotarians to apply to be on the DEI task force. It has since been populated, and I believe there's about 7 or 8, maybe 9 people who are on this. And there is some research that's going to be done, some evaluation of where we are right now as an organization, and steps that we need to take to move forward with actionable steps for clubs. And what's happening in a lot of different clubs in a lot of different districts is that their own DEI committees, diversity, equity, and inclusion committees, are being formed. And if one hasn't been formed yet in your club or in your community or in your Rotary district, it might be an opportunity to do that. I think eventually, and this is just a personal opinion on my part, I think eventually we'll probably see staff position, a position or even positions created to deal with this, because this is not a conversation that we can, just have and it's solved. This is a decades-long conversation. If it's a conversation for our lifetime, if you will. And the fact that we're taking a more meaningful look at it right now, I'm very heartened by that. I think that there are a lot of challenging and difficult conversations on so many levels, from the most basic to the most serious, that need to happen. And the more that we can prepare our Rotarians to be advocates and champions of leading solid dialogue and good dialogue is, I think it's something that is a real possibility for, meaningful opportunity for a lot of our members. And so there is, like I said, a lot to be done. But take a look at the website right now and stay tuned, because the task force is in place until the end of this Rotary year, till June 30th. But I know it's not going away at that point. There'll be some other iteration to it. And I know I can tell you, without getting into detail right now, that I have some fairly substantive plans personally on where I'd like to see DEI go in 2023 when I take on the role of president.
Thank you. And we have formed a DEI task force in our district. Our meeting is on December 9th at 5:30 if anybody is interested in joining us. But, Jennifer, thank you so much for your insight, your inspiration. We really appreciate your time to be with us live from Ontario. So everybody, if we can give her a hand.
Mwah! I love you guys. I am so glad that I got to hang out with you guys today, and thanks for the great questions. And I'm looking forward to coming back to visit you all in person, and I hope it's sooner rather than later. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thank you all for your leadership and for your service.
Jennifer, this is Nancy Cabral. I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Hilo, and we're celebrating our 100th year in Rotary right now, this year, this week. And
Wow.
I'd like to personally invite you to come to Hilo, Hawaii on May 14, 15, and 16, 2021, because we're going to have the district conference that weekend in Hilo, live for sure, people in attendance. So please mark your calendar and see if you can visit us. We'll work on your accommodations. Maybe someone in the group can get you an airline ticket or even something. So please mark your calendar. I'd love to have you come to Hilo.
Well, thank you, Nancy, and congratulations to your club. Please tell everybody that we're proud of you guys. 100 years is a huge accomplishment.
Yes.
And so good on you, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you.
Yay, Nancy.
I'm always so shy. Thank you.
And Randy Hart was with us for a little while. Randy Hart is our district governor in your year.
Yes.
And I think he disappeared because I think he's on the mainland right now. But thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you very much for your time. Aloha.
Take care, everyone. Aloha.